What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
All right, I think we are all set. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 528 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's KB, it's Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. We got a lot to dive into. Going to get Matt's thoughts on the Sixers' historic sweep during the process era and the first time in our lifetimes. NFL draft tomorrow night. Going to do our best to preview that, as it seems like one of the more unpredictable drafts in recent memory. We're also going to dive into the Phillies, and of course the Union gets set for the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal tonight at 9 o'clock against LAFC. And for the True Blue Sicko fans, Survivor 44 continues on. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But as always, guys, this show presented by the City of Vineland, and whether you're a company looking to expand, relocate, or are a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's economic development department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process. Their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you are considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you decide to consume your podcast. We're there. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does go a long way for helping the show continue to grow, helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia and all of the shows on our network. And go subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of every podcast on our network, including this show, twice a week. You get live streams, including our Underground Draft show will be live on YouTube tomorrow night for the first round. You get clips, shorts, all that good stuff on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. We are currently at 447 subscribers, big bump over the last 2 days. Go subscribe. We're on that road to 500 and, of course, that road to 1,000. So be a friend, tell a friend to go subscribe, smash that like button, ring the bell icon, and leave a comment down below on your thoughts with everything Matt and I discuss on this episode. And big thank you to Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland for their continued support of this podcast. What's going on, Matt?
I'm living the dream.
We witness history for the first time in our lives since the last time you and I recorded an episode. The Philadelphia 76ers sweep the Nets. They're on to round 2. And who would have thought the Atlanta Hawks would come up clutch and give Joel Embiid some extra rest, as he's now dealing with the LCL sprain, because we can't go a single NBA postseason without some freak Joel Embiid injury. It's just par for the course. But the Sixers are on to round 2, still awaiting their opponent, but they do know when it will kick off. We don't have Sixers basketball again until May 1st.
Yeah. Give us an extra 2 days of Joel Embiid rest, which I think is pretty big because, at least based off Doc's press conference talking about the injury, it sounded like he was 50-50. There was, I think, some mixed reporting, but that was at least what he was saying. And, I think with that initial thought, there was at least a chance that he maybe misses game 1, but he's back for game 2, maybe misses both first games in Boston and is back for Philly, assuming Boston is, of course, who we'll be facing. Now, with that extra 2 days, maybe that gets you in a zone, and we've learned at least a little more about his injury, that it being an LCL sprain is typically a 7 to 12 day type of recovery. to at least be able to play on it. We'll see, how he looks. I think the concern is that, one, we don't know that it's necessarily going to be healed, and two, this is now going to be over a week that he hasn't really played, and conditioning has been an issue with him because he is asked to do a lot offensively and asked to do a lot defensively. So that could be a concern. But as far as the Nets series went, it was a sweep, which, like you said, is the first time we've ever seen that in our lives. 1991 was the last time the Sixers swept an opponent. That was in a 5-game series. You have to go all the way back to 1985. The last time they swept someone in a 7-game series. So not something we do very often. It's been almost 40 years since we did that, which is shocking that we have not at any point just put a team away. But that's also because a lot of times, like you said, every year we have this issue, and it's usually we go 3-0 up in a series, and Embiid gets some weird freak injury that takes him out for the remainder of the series. You usually drop that game or the game after, and normally he misses time at the beginning of the second round. He's not quite the same player, doesn't have the same effectiveness. I hope that this is not following the same script, but this is why also it was very hard for me at any point this year to just get fully in, knowing that this is the potential path for them, that it could just all end in heartbreak. It is starting to feel eerily familiar in that sense, but it was a good playoff series. It's nice to get through. It's hilarious that we're the only team in the NBA that swept their first round opponent. I don't care that the Nets are like barely even a playoff team. We still did it, and that everyone else in the East is still just beating the hell out of each other. And we've just been chilling for the last 5 days now.
It's insane, and it's like it's the first time like that I feel like has happened where like you get the one team where they handle the opponent that they're supposed to handle. They get the sweep, and then it's just a bloodbath. Even in the West, across the board, we've had exciting series between like the Warriors and Kings. Knicks Cavs has been crazy, and now the Hawks have made it a series against the Celtics. And I don't know who's going to have to. I don't know where they're going to move her, but Janet Jackson and the Atlanta Hawks are double booked for State Farm Arena on the 27th.
Well, that's. Maybe she'll just, I don't know, I'm sure they have some opening thing, like how we have Ring the Bell. I'm sure they have, maybe they get to like,
Janet Jackson halftime concert.
Well, how sometimes they might bring out like an actual live hawk, and maybe she'll like get to do that. Yeah, shout out to the Hawks, giving us a little bump. Who knows?
Ice Trae.
If there's one thing that we know is that the Hawks have a way of, when you have double-digit leads against them multiple times and have the chance to put them away, and you don't, and you have a Game 7 at home looming, maybe you were looking too far ahead at your conference finals path and weren't paying enough attention to the Atlanta Hawks in front of you. I don't know. I still think the Celtics win that series, and that's who we're likely to face. But we don't know for sure that is going to be the case, which is nice. I do think, if we are looking ahead to the next series, I do think, the Celtics not being able to, as Doc would say, they're playing with their meat at the moment. But their inability to kind of put them away, and I think maybe it's gone a little under the radar. I don't know, but like Joe Mazzulla he's a first-year head coach. Coaching in the playoffs is like a whole different experience, and I just wonder if maybe that could be a factor in the playoffs. Not that Doc is like some, I'm not turning the tables here and saying Doc is some amazing playoff coach, because we've had our issues with him, but he is more experienced. And I do wonder if that shows at all. But, Udoka was also a relatively inexperienced head coach, at least, and was very good and brought the Celtics to the finals last year. So, experiences and everything. But I do wonder, maybe there's a little bit of that. You've seen Jason Tatum not having his best moments. I think you can kind of convince yourself. I think the concern is that the Nets were really the blueprint for how the Celtics are going to play you. And the Sixers passed that test. I mean, they swept them. There's no other way of saying that. But still some concerning bits out of that. Like Harden's inability to finish around the rim is just shocking.
It's weird.
It's bizarre. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it was just very unlucky in that series, and we're due for some variance. I don't mind that I actually thought like he looked pretty okay outside of that. Like he was still getting by players, which is good, and the Nets do have some athletic wings that, are not just like turnstiles. He was getting past some pretty good defenders. And I think that's a positive, and you just hope that he finds his touch around the rim, because that's what we're going to need. And again, you just have to pray that Embiid is actually healthy and good to go, because, I think you're going to need, if you look at the games that the Sixers have played against the Celtics, the games that have been the closest, and the only game that we've won against them was Embiid's 50-point night. But in one of the other games we were close to, Embiid had, I think, like 42 or 43. You need those big, and you need Embiid to be the best player on the floor. And I do have my concerns if he's like 85% of his like normal self, if he's able to reach that level, because the Celtics have guys that can eclipse him. And, I just don't know that we can count on Harden 4 out of 7 games to be like his very good self. I think he might only get like 2. So
Which is then where you need, like you saw in Game 4 against the Nets, you need Tobias Harris to step up.
I think we got our first round Tobias Harris performances where we all decide that maybe his contract isn't so bad and that he's pretty good and that he's a decent 4th option. And a lot of teams, he'd actually be the 2nd option. And then he just stinks it up in this. And this is what I'm saying. Like, this is why it's so hard for me to not. I'm not trying to go like full doomer here, but it's hard for me to just be like, oh yeah, like we're gonna, because.
You're going to need, like, those players, though, to step up against the Celtics. Like,
absolutely.
As much as you said, like, the blueprint for how the Celtics are going to play was, kind of distributed by the Nets. The Celtics are a different beast, but I think Zoe put it best with one of his gifts after Game 5 when the Hawks won. It's like Rocky, they're not a machine. They're human. There's ways to beat them. You just have to have guys in those moments step up, and I think we've seen spurts from different guys that traditionally in years past, too, the Sixers wouldn't get those performances from those guys, and it's kind of the types of people that you're not expecting. Like, to close out a game the way DeAnthony Melton did, the Sixers in years past haven't had a guy like that.
Yeah, DeAnthony Melton, I think, is a huge X factor in this series, and he even got a few starts against the Celtics this year. I wonder if maybe even go back to the look if we'd maybe see PJ Tucker out of the starting lineup. I did think PJ was really good in that net series in like very specific ways. His effort on rebounding is like something the Sixers have just not had over the last 4 years. Like I can't tell you how many times I think that really changes the complexion of the series, because we've seen so many times where guys just don't put that effort in and win a really hard-earned foul, right, because they're going for a loose ball, or just get that rebound, which can swing it, which, Paul Reed did it near the end of one of those Nets games. Like, I do think, like, it was a strange series in that I feel better about the Sixers supporting cast, and I feel worse about our stars, like, coming out of it. I feel worse about Embiid's ability to be impactful, mostly because of the injury, but even then, he did not have a great series. For a guy that is likely going to be an MVP, you would hope that you got a touch more dominance. I mean, he was good, but like not by his standards.
And who's to say, not making excuses for him, but who's to say when this injury popped up?
It seems like it happened in Game 3.
That's what I felt like too.
I still think, I don't know. I think we could have seen a little bit better Embiid, and I was not really. You got one good game out of Harden, and then the rest were mostly disappointing. Maxey had some good moments, but even then, a little inconsistency. But yeah, I look around and I look at someone like DeAnthony Melton and think like, yeah, we just haven't had this. And I'm so thankful that we do. I'm so thankful that we have DeAnthony Melton, because I think he's incredibly important. We touched on B-Ball Paul last week, but he had some bright moments. He definitely provides like a good spark, and has not been, if you look at the history of backup centers in Sixers' recent history, he is somehow like in the top 2. He's like almost Mr. Irrelevant in the NBA draft, and he's doing better than a lot of veteran guys. So that's good.
And even a guy like Jalen McDaniels, like,
yeah,
even though he's not going to get the pomp and circumstance like some of these other guys, like, he's one of those guys that goes under the radar and makes, 2 to 3 plays a game that are impactful, especially on the defensive side of things, that, like, there's another key to, a key piece that the Sixers in years past haven't had, is having kind of that defensive stopper that can also help move the ball around, can score a little bit if he's, finding his spots. That's something that they haven't had, and kind of, I think what they expected to have in a Matisse Thybulle over the past couple of years, and it just never manifested on the offensive side of the ball with Matisse.
Yeah, Jalen McDaniels as well. Definitely a good, important option coming into the Celtics series. So it's so strange because the Celtics are, in some ways, I think because of just our history with them and that they have just frankly owned us over the last 4 years, that we kind of build them up, I think, bigger than they actually are and better than they actually are. But there is something to the fact that we just, even like in the Sixers like best iterations when the Celtics have not even been as good, we've just not been able to beat them consistently. And this year especially, it was a little different. I know one of the Celtics games I don't think Harden even played, and we know the Celtics were like just white hot at the start of the season. And obviously we open up the season against the Celtics as we do like every season, it feels like. But it's just not a team that we play and match up well with. And I that's like my just biggest concern. I don't look at the Celtics team and think, wow, they're just blowing teams away. Like, this team is so good. I just think they're a bad matchup for us. And I think that the only real advantage we have in this series is Joel Embiid. And he is yet again hurt. And I that just worries me. And it just worries me that, I think for the Sixers to win this series, Embiid has to be the best player on the court for 4 out of 7 games. And he's going to have big Joel Embiid nights. And I don't know that he's capable of that. Like, that is very much in doubt. To me, that was a little bit of a concern even before the injury, because I don't know. Like, we've seen him do it in the regular season against the Celtics, but I do think it is different once you get to the playoffs and they have more time to plan specifically for you. But we'll see. And again, it would be hilarious if we're talking all of this and it's the Hawks that we end up playing. And yet again, we have our eyes on the conference finals because the Bucks get bounced by the Heat, and we have the Heat and Knicks, as potential conference finalists. And we're like, well, we just get past the Hawks, and look what happens out west. And it's like, that would be the darkest timeline, I think, is that we get bounced by the Hawks again in the second round.
The one thing that I've noticed too, especially like down the stretch in the regular season and kind of, post All-Star break really, and then down the stretch of the regular season into the postseason so far, Celtics really do have issues closing out games. They seem to let teams, stay around, stay in the mix, through most of the second half of games. And you've seen it a bunch with the Hawks, with the 2 wins the Hawks have gotten. Even Game 4, it ended up being like a 7 or an 8-point game at the end. I think that's something that, like you mentioned, like having a rookie head coach, that plays a factor in the postseason, I think, more so than having, a coach who has experience playing in the postseason, playing on the big stages. And not that Doc has, performed to the standards that I think most Sixers fans would hope in his tenure as head coach of this team in the playoffs. But Doc's got plenty of postseason experience, and I think that's, at least a morsel of something to just pay attention to when it is crunch time and, late in games, how the Celtics are kind of operating and how the Sixers can kind of take advantage of things with the experience factor of their coaching staff.
Yeah, definitely can't count that out. And again, Doc is not perfect. I actually think he wasn't bad in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's given, I think some of our criticisms in years past, he has, I think, improved on in that series. But again, the first round has never been the question for the Sixers team. I think they might be one of the best first round playoff teams of the last 5 years. Like, they always look great in the first round. They always, like, I don't know that they've ever lost more than 1 game in the first round. I think pretty much every series has been 4-1 outside of obviously this sweep. I really, off the top of my head, cannot remember them losing to maybe the first year back in the playoffs against the Heat, I think.
Last year they lost 2 to the Raptors.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's right, because there was the fake comeback.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside of that, like, this team is largely
Raptors, and then the last time they lost 2 in a postseason series outside of the Mickey Mouse bubble sweep was that infamous Bulls series in 2011-2012. So pre-process.
Look at that. Look at God. I think in general, it's never been a worry about their first round performance and how they've looked. It has always been, once you get to, that second round, how do you perform? And this team has not passed that test ever. So that is the big question for me, looming. I don't think the Celtics are like some unstoppable juggernaut. I just also think that they're They're just a challenging matchup for the Sixers. Every team has another team in the playoffs that are like that within your own conference that you kind of just don't want to see until you have to see them. And that's who the Celtics are for this team.
Matt, now you brought up PJ Tucker earlier, and you and my sister are going to Italy this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see PJ Tucker's quote on Italian food via Marcus Hayes?
Did not. I'm interested.
So PJ Tucker on Italian food. I don't know if this is good news or bad news for you guys. Italian food in America is way better than Italian food in Italy. Quote PJ Tucker.
Well, Italian food in America is Italian-American food. It's important to note because I think people go to Italy and expect that it's like chicken parmesan, and that's like not like. I think people need to understand that when like your Italian grandmother and grandfather came to America like 100 years ago, they were mostly coming from like heavily impoverished areas where they had like pizza was just like bread with like traditional Neapolitan pizza is actually like either like dough with just sauce and like garlic on it or like dough with sauce and cheese because it was like incredibly cheap. So a lot of the like new inventions, which are good. I'm not going to debate whether they're good or not, but if you're talking like, I think people have a tendency to think that the Italian food we have here is the same as it is in Italy, and that is not necessarily the case. I think you can appreciate both. I don't know that one has to be better than the other. I think they both have their own realm. I think we're much more on the savory side, whereas in Italy it is much more, I think they are more into like freshness, much more like seasonal food. But you know what? Fair enough, PJ.
I did see somebody say this PJ Tucker quote comes to you after spending 7 months in South Philadelphia.
Well, yeah. That's also true.
Did you also see the recent, because everybody on NBA Twitter loves to monitor who follows who, Matt. After last night's game, Trae Young hits the game winner. Trae Young now following Joel Embiid on social media.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool now until they win Game 6, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, whoa. Don't want to have to, I'd rather, you know what? It's a funny story. It's going to be terrifying if the Hawks do complete a comeback, and then it's like, oh, we've got to play the Hawks now. That's not what I'm going to be looking forward to, but it is funny. It is funny seeing some other team, kind of struggle with the Atlanta Hawks. Wouldn't know what that's like. I wouldn't know what it's like to be unable to put the Hawks away. Just let them linger around a series when you should have. I will never in my life.
I will never at an all-time low.
That was truly like one of my darkest sports moments because it's not even just that we lost. Like we 2 games in a row had a double-digit lead over the Hawks and let it slip away. I think both of those leads were actually like 20-plus point leads, and we let them slip away. And
you didn't consume basketball until at least Christmas that following year.
Because then it was like you just had the whole mess of the Ben Simmons shit. That was one of the worst off seasons. One of the worst off seasons I've ever had watching the NBA. I mean, I will never get over that series. That series took a lot of joy away from me, and a lot of my cynicism about the Sixers is like just from that series. And like I'll never get over it. I will never get over the fact that we had honestly. I think there are 2 times that the Sixers probably should have been like in a finals like situation, and it is 2018, 2019. And when you just ran into like a red hot Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors, and it's like sometimes it just goes that way. You and fair enough. But I really think if they make it out of that Raptor series, and then you make it to the finals, and the Warriors are hobbled, maybe there's your ring. Maybe Jimmy Butler never leaves. Whatever. I also really think. In 21, I truly think that the Sixers absolutely should have been in the conference finals. I think they definitely could have beaten the Bucks, and I like our chances against the Suns. And we blew it. we absolutely blew it.
You were on record. Give me the easiest path to the finals, and it was right there.
It was. I mean, and obviously it didn't work out. But like, if you're asking me if I would rather had them or the Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics, like. No, obviously give me the Hawks. It was so stupid that we lost that series. Never get over it.
Did you see Jimmy Butler's quote after Heat fans were chanting MVP, and he said, "That goes to Joel."
He's still got his pandering notebook because maybe he's thinking about his next destination. Who knows? But
his next chapter.
Yeah, I feel like that has that's been a bizarre thing, right? That the fact that the Bucks are going to lose in the first round, that's not great. So maybe we should have been in the 4 or 5 seed. Maybe
Somewhere in a closet at the Wells Fargo Center, a ladder has his feet kicked up, cackling at Giannis right now.
That is true. Rest up your back, King.
But yeah, I mean, rest of the NBA playoffs, Lakers surprisingly look like they're on their way to advancing. The Warriors-Kings has become an all-time first-round series, and the Clippers, once again, just the first-round version of the 76ers where they just can't get out of the first round.
Clippers, I mean, you talk about just like snake bit year after year. Turns out building the franchise around two very injury-prone stars. One was a degenerative knee condition. Not great, like it has a chance to go really wrong for you. I think the Warriors-Kings series have been my favorite to watch just because the pace of play has been really fun and two very exciting teams. De'Aaron Fox broke his finger, but apparently he's going to play, which is nice. Although I think that's a 10 o'clock game today, so probably not going to be watching that live. But yeah, I have liked the energy of that series. We talked to the Kings; they deserve it. They deserve to have some good moments, and I hope that they're able to at least get a game 7, to at least have a game 7, have that experience. If not, obviously go through the next round, but it is going to be challenging now with Fox's injury. But yeah, I hope that I'd like to see more of the Kings. 'Cause they're a very good team too. They're not, I thought they were very unlucky actually to be at 2-2 here.
Former Blue Coats GM Matt Lilley is a scout for the Kings, so shout out to them. Yeah, the Knicks and Cavs are playing right now. Knicks up 24-16. Lakers Grizzlies at 7:30. Heat Bucks at 9:30, and then Warriors Kings at 10.
Could see the Bucks closed out tonight. That'd be tough. That would be tough.
Could see a few series.
Could see
done tonight.
Yeah,
those first 3 could be over tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about just stakes too. I mean, the Bucks first round exit. I don't know if Budenholzer survives that. I don't know what maybe moves they consider in the offseason. You're not blowing it up, obviously. You're not making huge moves, but I wouldn't hate seeing a. Although maybe Budenholzer staying would be better. I don't know.
Yeah.
I go back and forth with that, but yeah, I'm curious to see how the rest of the East shapes up. Although it seems the Knicks, I think, are very much on their way to the second round. We'll see what happens at the Bucks Heat though.
I'm kind of surprised the Knicks have kind of handled the Cavs the way they have.
Cavs have 2 problems. Well, 3. Coach is not great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a young team, and young teams just typically don't perform well in the playoffs through no fault of their own. And they have 2 bigs that have no real offensive side of their game. Now, Evan Mobley has time still to develop that, but and Jared Allen is not particularly great and on the offensive end, I should say. And so that creates a problem where you don't have to worry about essentially 2 of your 5 starters. That has been the problem. And yeah, the Knicks are one of those. They're one of those classic first round excitement teams. And maybe I'll be eating these words, but I would be surprised to see them. Although I the thought of a Knicks Heat second round series is just disgusting. Sounds like an awful time.
Jimmy versus Thibodeau.
I mean, just truly, just the coffee breath in that is astounding. Tom Thibodeau looks like he has he looks like an old-timey journalist. I feel like he should be banging his fist on a table asking for, I need that on my desk for printing at midnight. He just, coffee stains everywhere. He chews on cigars. He doesn't smoke them. He chews on them.
100%. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the NBA playoffs. And May 1st is when things shake out for the Sixers' second round, which, if there is a Game 7, Matt, Mother's Day.
Well, it was Father's Day, wasn't it? Jesus. Great. It's over. It's over.
Before we keep it pushing, I want to give a shout out to our amazing merch partners, PHI Apparel Company. And this show is brought to you by PHI Apparel Company, who provide unique designs and high-quality clothing for the great fans of Philly and our podcast network with their original designs for all. There's no doubt you'll stand out in the crowd Whether you're going to the Wells Fargo Center for round 2 action for the Sixers, going down to Citizens Bank Park all season long for the Phils, Subaru Park for the Union, your favorite bar, or just chilling at home, you're going to stand out with the great merch from PHI Apparel Company. And you can get exclusive Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast merch. We're working on getting some new stuff up pretty soon for the spring and summer that you won't want to miss out on. Our listeners can use promo code Underground for 10% off any apparel when you shop online at phiapparel.co. That's phiapparel.co. Use code Underground so they know you're coming from us. You get 10% off any apparel, and that includes our exclusive Underground Sports Philadelphia merch, hoodies, shirts, all that good stuff. And when you get your merch, tag us because we want to see where you're rocking your merch from. Shout out to PHI Apparel Company for being our exclusive merch providers. Matt, the Phils, they're underway right now. Our boy Nicky C hit a 2-run Oppo Taco to start off tonight's game, but J.P. Crawford hit a grand slam, followed by Julio Rodriguez solo shot. So the Phils right now losing 5-2 to the Mariners. But overall, it seems like they're kind of finding their way as the month of April is slowly coming to a close. Right now, sitting at 11-13. We tried to tell you the sky wasn't falling. It's still very early, and the crazier part is, it seems like next week Bryce Harper's back.
I just refuse to believe that. I mean, I really do. I don't know how or why. I'm not gonna necessarily get upset, but I don't understand that. I actually don't want anyone to explain it to me because I'm making me more worried. I have no idea how he's back. I really don't.
I do think part of it is the fact that he's going to be playing first base rather than immediately going to the outfield, so it's a little less throwing motion. But videos have been coming out every single day. He's been doing head-first slides. He's been taking ground balls at first. He's been throwing at first base. It's crazy.
It's is this safe? Is this allowed? I don't understand it. I really don't. I mean, it's great. And, we somehow ended up with the Angels' best outfielder on our team now. And, all of a sudden we have a competent outfield, which, complete, all across the board, which is spectacular. But, yeah, I mean, J.P. Crawford coming back. Who would have thought coming back? And last night doing some damage, today doing some damage. That's great. You love to see a good homecoming. I do feel better about this team in general. They showed a little bit. Also against teams that they should be beating, to be very frank. I think they should. I actually think it's a little bit disappointing they don't sweep the Rockies at home. Mm-hmm. But, that's neither here nor there. I do still think some of the starting pitching could do with a little bit of improvement. That's been shaky to start the season, but I mean, offensively, I don't know. You can complain a whole lot about this team. They've been pretty good all throughout, and like we've mentioned pretty much every week now, guys like Stott and Marsh have had such a good start to the season. Trae's been really consistent, constantly making contact. Power hasn't been there, but in general, it's just been kind of everything is advertised outside of that. And I mean, if you are able to add Bryce to the mix as soon as next week,
Bowman, Castellanos have also been phenomenal.
Yeah, Castellanos has definitely figured some things out this year. Still not perfect, but I do think the plate discipline in some aspects is better. Still striking out a little bit more, but he's also taking more walks. So it's it's more disciplined, yet is still also chasing at times. But I think it's not as egregious. I think that
he seems way more comfortable, just
absolutely
in his role, kind of knowing what his role is too. I think helps.
I think I read he's moved closer to the plate, mm-hmm. and that has been some of the recipe for success. Again, strikeouts have still been a little bit of an issue, but if he's hitting he has 12 doubles now, or something.
And I think he's gotten at least one hit in 14 out of his last 16 games.
Yeah, so he's I think this is a guy that as the season goes on, maybe we get some confidence and he starts rolling.
He's really taken on a leadership role too.
Absolutely.
The articles that come out now, it's everybody goes to Nick Castellanos for everything. And then I think it was last week, I forget who put the article out, but they said that Alec Boehm went to Nick Castellanos after I fucking hate this place thing, and Nick was like, you're gonna figure it out, you're gonna be fine. So He's really taken on that clubhouse leader role too, that I don't think a lot of people expected him to do, but I think it's so valuable, especially when you have a guy like Bryce being out, a guy like Reese being out, who is kind of like your heartbeat of the team, to have somebody like Nick Castellanos truly like ingraining himself in the city and just, doing the pandering thing, whether it's genuine or whatever it may be. He said he wants to do whatever it takes to win here.
You love to hear that. You do love to hear that. Bohm has been great. I mean, just a true blessing. I just
what a lottery ticket we cashed in on.
Man, it just feels good. It feels
good to be right.
It feels so good. Feels so good to see a guy doing it at the lower levels as a prospect and thinking and just betting on him and just hoping and praying. And he's been great. He's been making such good contact. I think, again, if you add Bryce to this mix, you get back to around 500, move a few above if you can as you sweep into May, and start actually playing some NL East teams.
Mm-hmm.
Whether those games, not that these games don't matter, but those games really matter.
Yeah, especially with how the schedule is this year.
Right, and it's not unlikely that we'll be fighting with one of the Mets and or Braves for, if not the division, the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Jury's out on the Marlins, but those we have a tendency, I think, with baseball to, in one way, overlook and sort of brush off the first part of the season. Like, well, it's a long season. Every year, we sit here in August or in September when we're looking at the wild card standings and we reflect on some of the losses at the beginning of the season and some of the ways that this team could have made up more ground, and that, we're 3.5 back if, we didn't have that shitty series in April or May, and every team has that.
Yeah.
That's not a Phillies exclusive thing, and I'm sure every fan base has those conversations, but, it is frustrating. And it will be frustrating when we lose like 3 or 4 to the Braves in May. So.
Yep, and that's Memorial Day weekend, which is usually your litmus test of where you are in the first half of the season. It's good to know that the national landscape of baseball, though, Matt, is recognizing how great of an outfield the Phillies have. Cespedes Family Barbecue tweeted yesterday, the Phillies outfield defense right now is an awesome watch. A great center fielder in center field, Brandon Marsh, an elite center fielder in left with Christian Pache, and the greatest defensive outfielder in postseason history in right field, Nick Castellanos.
All of those are true.
Yeah.
Also, I think we should start calling him Brandon Bonds because he is. Where the hell did this come from? And by the way, I'd just like to revisit something. When there was filling their diaper about Logan O'Hoppe, the guy that we got has like a 1,200 OPS.
I'm pulling up his stats right now because they are absurd.
That is quite literally, that is like Barry Bonds and Mike Trout did that. That is, and he's not going to do that the whole season, but he's playing an insane. Well, yeah.
Yeah, right now, going into tonight's game, Brandon Marsh's OPS is 1157. His on-base percentage is 439. He's hitting 352. He's got 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 1 stolen base. He scored 14 runs, has 25 hits in 71 at-bats.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Turns out. Oh, and by the way, he's a Gold Glover.
We start the campaign right now. Brandon Marsh for Gold Glove.
I actually would like to know how far in the season he has to play at this level before we actually have a Brandon Marsh for MVP conversation.
Marsh VP.
I'm being pretty serious. Like,
he's been unbelievable.
It's a month into the season. You don't want to get carried away, but it's a month. Like, he's doing this for a month. Good. It's not necessarily gonna be at this, but I don't know. He's pretty damn good.
He's pretty good.
And I mean, we saw it in the tail end of last year too. We saw it in the playoffs. Like, this is a guy, he can play, and he's also deceptively young because he's like
25.
He looks like one of the Duck Dynasty guys, but he's actually more like a TikTok star. Like
he's right now 4th in all of Major League Baseball in batting average with the 357 batting average. He is currently, Bryson Stott is currently 4th with total hits so far this year. And then we have, let's see if we can find the rest of everything. But yeah, I mean, Brandon Marsh has been unbelievable.
I think he has the top WAR, if not in baseball, in the National League. It's just amazing.
I think he leads the NL or all of baseball in OPS too.
Yeah.
Like, he's been unbelievable, and it's one of those things where
No,
we talked
but
about it
Kyle,
last week.
Logan O'Hoppe had a double like 3 weeks ago. So
Do want to send our best wishes to Logan.
I do, but I don't want to make it like a O'Hoppe versus Marsh thing, but it's just like people would not shut up about Logan O'Hoppe, and it's like, are we doing this? We could, I mean, genuinely, we could trade a Logan O'Hoppe like caliber type, where he's probably an everyday player at some point in his career. If not, he's gonna be an MLB player for like a decent chunk of time. Like we know that's his floor at least. We could trade him for like actual Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
And there would be like people, O'Hoppe would
There's
have
been
nice.
very few prospects that the Phillies have traded, whether it's under, during the run regime, 07 to 11, even with Clentak to now, that have truly like snake bitten the Phillies in the long run. I think one during the run, there was only one during the 07 to 11, it was Carlos Carrasco, who actually turned into a serviceable and high-quality Major League pitcher. J.P. Crawford has found his groove, but I think that trade was a net positive for both teams because the Phillies ended up getting Gene Segura in that trade. And we all we fell in love with Gene Segura. He became a cult hero here. Other than that, there really hasn't been any prospect that you look around Major League Baseball right now that was a former Philly who has truly come back to bite them in any sort of trade. And that's a positive from just like whoever was GM at the time, kind of just assessing the value of the players that you're giving away to bring in talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in general the Phillies have actually been pretty okay with with letting guys go, and I think maybe that's luck. Maybe that's the opposite luck. Like, we can't develop great prospects, but we don't
Until now.
we don't lose great ones, we've never really never really regretted a lot of the decisions that we made.
Also, Brandon Marsh leading leading all Major League Baseball in triples. He's got 4 triples on the year.
NPD.
I am still fully convinced this is the year that the Phillies finally get a cycle for the first time since 2004. Whether it's Marsh, Trae Turner, like, they have somebody in this lineup now that can get that done.
Let's see it.
Love to see it. Obviously, after this Mariners series, more interleague play this weekend. World Series rematch. Astros haven't been that great to start the year, so that's also kind of nice for the time period that you get to play them. So hopefully, you go out on a high note to end the month of April and go into May, swinging in with some National League opponents, some actual NL East opponents. But we'll see what happens there. But Matt, our favorite thing to do every single week, the NL East Run Differential, brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer. It's the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. They've been rocking with us for as long as we can remember, and Kenwood Beer is the beer you should be drinking if you're in the Philadelphia area. It's 4.1% ABV, just 127 calories, 10 grams of carbs. You guys can go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the all-new and improved Kenny Tracker to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You can also buy Kenwood Beer at your local Philadelphia area liquor store, or if you're in Eastern Pennsylvania, you can get it at your local Whole Foods. It's light body, light calories, plenty of flavor, the best light beer on the planet. Must be 21 or older to do so, and of course, please drink responsibly. So, Matt, as we are in the final week of April baseball right now, just 2 teams with positive run differentials in the NL East. The Atlanta Braves at the top of the division at 16-8 with just a plus 38 run differential. The New York Mets at 14-10 and a plus 14. The Miami Marlins, who are 12-12, somehow have one of the worst run differentials in all of baseball at negative 37 and have only scored 76 runs this season so far, which is towards the bottom of the barrel in all of Major League Baseball. To put it in perspective for everybody at home, the Oakland A's have scored more runs than the Marlins this year.
Yikes. And they have a possum playing.
They have a possum in there. They have a new stadium in Las Vegas, which literally that news broke on a Friday night at 1 a.m.
Yeah, classic.
Our Philadelphia Phillies at 11-13, sitting at a negative 12 run differential, but they do have over 100 runs scored already to start this season. One of the 3 teams in the NL East with that number there. And then the stolen franchise Washington Nationals at a negative 15 run differential. And like you said, the jury's still out on the Marlins, but like I don't know how much longer any team can keep the pace that they are without scoring runs.
Yeah.
Like you can only win 1-0 games for so long.
When you have pitching like that, though, you know.
Very true. Unless Sandy Alcantara is pitching against the Phillies.
Yeah.
Taking a look at the grand scheme of Major League Baseball, the third place Chicago Cubs with the best run differential in the National League at plus 45. But they're in third place in the NL Central because the darling to start the year, the Pittsburgh Pirates, best team in the National League.
I cannot wait to see how they blow it up.
16-8 are the Pittsburgh Pirates. Have scored 118 runs. Give Brian Reynolds a big contract extension that he probably could have gotten on the open market and for less years, more AAV, but he's sticking in Pittsburgh. The Milwaukee Brewers at a plus 28 run differential. And then, the NL West, you want to talk about just like kind of mid? Dodgers are 13-11. Diamondbacks are 14-12. Padres are 12-13. Giants are 10-13, and the Rockies are 8-18.
What's up with the Cardinals, by the way? 9-15.
9-15. They just optioned their top prospect down to AAA. Not a great start to the year for the Cardinals.
Looking at who they've played so far, I mean, they haven't had the easiest.
The people are saying the Philadelphia Phillies ended the Cardinals' reign of terror.
Well, that'd be great if we did. I'd certainly love that. It's
And
bizarre. I just hadn't really clocked that they've been not great this year, to start the year at least.
And then the best run differential in baseball so far this year, obviously, the 20-4 Tampa Bay Rays at a plus 88.
Stupid good.
And then the Texas Rangers sitting at a plus 56 as they are
we
still...
We gave them about like 20 of those.
Yeah, still in first place in the AL West by 1 game as the Houston Astros are 13-11 right behind them. Angels at 12-12, Mariners at 11-12, and then Oakland A's at 5-19. It's been a league of parity to start the season this year in Major League Baseball. Outside of, I would say, the AL Central, which I would think is like the most mediocre division in all of baseball so far this year. Every other division is pretty much competitive with 3 to 4 teams in the mix in their divisions, which is fun. That's how you want baseball to be. We also have to touch on the debacle that has been the first 2 Dollar Dog nights at Citizens Bank Park. I don't know who's been in charge of organization and distribution of the Dollar Dogs, but somebody needs to find a new system and revamp Dollar Dog Night, especially with the pitch clock in play now, because the scenes from the first 2 Dollar Dog Nights this year have been absolute lunacy.
Like crazy lines.
Crazy lines, flying hot dogs throughout both games.
I did see the flying hot dogs.
And I saw the Philly captain put a video out on Twitter yesterday, 20 minutes before the game started. The lines, you would have thought like you were going to get a photo with Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, and Ryan Howard.
It is tough. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Again, I think if you do Dollar Dogs, maybe a little more, or spread them out a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's not as much rush to do so. I get they do them early in the season because it's a great way to fill seats. At a time of year where, it's a little chilly at night, and you don't. Kids got school in the morning. I get it, but maybe that'd help. I don't know if there's a solution though.
I've heard too, like there aren't hot dogs at every concession stand,
right.
So I think improving that a little bit would help. And then, from what I heard, at least yesterday's game, there weren't the traditional guys walking around with the how your beer and beverage distributors are walking around with different beers and different adult beverages going through the stands and everything. Typically they have that for Dollar Dog Night. Apparently that wasn't the case last night.
Yikes. Somebody's got to get on that.
Got to figure that out, especially with the pitch clock now. You're going to either stand in line for half the game.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you go catch some food and you lost 3 innings,
It's tough. It is tough. But yeah, I mean, Kyle Schwarber just singled in the bottom of the third, so it's 5-3 Mariners now. Hopefully the Phillies can make a comeback there. But we'll see what happens with Bryce. Hopefully, everything is checked out, and it'd be huge. He's coming back in a big-time series against the Boston Red Sox, allegedly, on Cinco de Mayo, and going into the Mother's Day weekend games. Plus, I think the Saturday game in that series is on Fox, so Bryce in primetime.
Yep.
Would love to see it. And also in primetime, Matt, it's brought to you by our friends over at Trophy Smack. There's no better way to upgrade your fantasy smack talk than with our friends over at Trophy Smack. They've got belts, rings, metal wall art, and of course trophies. We just upgraded the fantasy league I've been in with our friend Mikey Ostrowski. We've been doing it for a decade. We just upgraded our trophy and our fantasy smack talk with Trophy Smack. You guys can do the same when you go to trophysmack.com/underground and check out all of the goodies that they have to upgrade your fantasy smack talk going into the 2023 fantasy football season, and any fantasy league of that matter. Trophysmack.com/underground, link in the description and in the show notes on audio for you. Shout out to Trophy Smack. Matt, the NFL Draft Round 1 coming up on Thursday night. Eagles with 2 picks. Only 31 picks in this first round this year due to the Dolphins forfeiting their pick. Tough scene.
Yeah, because we're the first team to ever do that. Disgusting.
Tough scene. Lot of rumblings the past couple days, especially with interviews that he has done. Bijan Robinson saying the number 1 quarterback he'd want to play with is Jalen Hurts.
Same.
Lot of
If
people,
I was Bijan Robinson, I would also say that.
lot of speculation around Bijan, around Jalen Carter. A number of picks for the Eagles, and a lot of things that they can do with this number 10 pick. I still don't know what I would like to see them do, just because it's like even having this number 10 pick is such a luxury for them. Like, they're not going to be in this position, you hope, for the foreseeable future with the current, iteration of this team. But it's tough to not think about Bijan Robinson behind this offensive line. And, sure, you signed Rashad Penny going into free agency and everything, but how much can you trust him to stay healthy for a 17-game season? You bring back Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell is here. Bijan sounds real nice, and he was also I think he might have enrolled in the Bryce Harper School for Pandering 101. He's wearing a Kobe Bryant shirt today.
I mean, you want to talk about just home run, nonstop offense if we get Bijan Robinson. I mean, come on, son. Nothing better. I don't know that we will. It would be. I think there's 2 blue chip guys that the Eagles could theoretically pick up at 10, or should also mention, Eagles are not afraid. If they really like someone and they're within like 2 or 3 picks, they will go get them. They've done that time and time again. And if they really like, say, Jalen Carter and he falls, which is possible, they will go get him. If they really like Bijan Robinson and they feel like, they got to move up to 8 to get him, I think they will. And I don't think the cost is nearly as steep as people might think. And they have tons of picks next year, which maybe even makes me think, too, that they may not even trade back. They might trade out of 30. I think I would actually be more surprised if they pick at 30 than they do at 10. I think they probably make the selection at 10, maybe move up, something like that. Maybe 30 is included in that deal. Who knows? But I think because they have 12 picks next year, I'd be a little surprised if they, I get, and it has paid dividends, last year, getting this pick right and sort of, looking towards the future and filling the cabinet a little bit. But I don't know that you need to do that for next year. And I think you're not going to have the opportunity to pick in the top 10 anytime soon necessarily. So, take that opportunity to get a potential like foundational piece, whether that's an offensive guy like Bijan Robinson or someone like Jalen Carter or someone on the offensive line, like Peter Skoronski's been definitely linked to the Eagles, like kind of just build on your strength there and ensure that, even then, you have someone that's pretty versatile and that can provide you some really good snaps there. So they have great flexibility. I think is the biggest thing. And I think what's nice about their position too is they have needs everywhere. And not even hardcore needs, right? But there's really not a position that the Eagles can't not select at. There's pretty much any choice to make. But yeah, we could use that. There's some that I think are more pressing needs, but
I think oddly enough, the one spot for the first time in what feels like our lifetime is wide receiver.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if they walk out of the draft. I don't know on day one that they're picking anyone.
Maybe day 3. You take a guy,
I would be very surprised if the Eagles are not picking. Because, you obviously have your top 2, but then it's Quez Watkins and
you have Zacchaeus now that you signed.
And that's it. So I would be pretty surprised if they don't walk away. Maybe they stay at 30 and they really like someone. Who knows?
Well, here's a fun hypothetical, which we mentioned on Monday's episode that came out. Leave in the YouTube comment section a potential name for hypotheticals that we can bring up on the pod to kind of segment it there. Would you rather, Matt, the Eagles take Bijan at 10, or they take, if he falls to them, Jalen Carter at 10, and then trade pick 30 and a pick next year to the Tennessee Titans for the alleged rumor marriage that is Derrick Henry?
I don't really want Derrick Henry, and I don't know that the Eagles do either. That just does not feel like it's in the Eagles kind of playbook to go for Derrick Henry. That feels we know that running back are not it, and that's the reason. Bijan Robinson in 2010 is the number 1 overall pick, and this is not even a conversation. But we understand now that running backs are not a premium position that you can kind of get by, and you don't need the best running back in the league, and especially with the offensive line and the way this offense plays, you don't need the guy. I don't see that. I think in that situation. Although having Jalen Carter and Derrick Henry is pretty nice, but I do think you're giving up a little bit. I think I'd, in that situation, rather just have Bijan, and you have him for 5 years on a rookie contract, which is a nice thing. And, from there you can kind of pivot forward. But
we just got probably an hour and a half before we went live. Philly Voice put an article out. With the countdown of the draft entering its final hours, Howie Roseman is rumored to be calling about moving up, and Ohio State tackle Paris Johnson
he has
may be the target.
Got a ton of buzz to the Cardinals as well. Apparently, Kyler Murray's asking for him specifically, so he's gotten a ton of buzz. By the way, I saw this report earlier, and no one has talked about this. I feel and I had to look and make sure it wasn't a fever dream. The 49ers are inquiring on getting Lamar Jackson, which I have no clue how this hadn't. No one had brought this up before. I'm why is no one in on Lamar? Every team is gonna give up the whatever pick to go get whoever. You're gonna give up a ton of capital to go get, Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, per Dan Patrick, the San Francisco 49ers have explored a trade for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. That feels like tomorrow night Lamar Jackson is going to be a 49er. And no one talked about this. I feel like I saw this and I was like, no one's going to mention this? How damaging that would be if you have Lamar Jackson on the 49ers? Because I feel like everyone's just okay, they've received a ton of calls about Trae Lance, and there's been a lot of smoke about that. And Brock Purdy has this UCL injury, and he's not named Bryce Harper, so he's not just going to be back in 2 months. He could be out.
Bryce Harper's Lord is different than Brock Purdy's Lord.
Well, his Mormon God is different.
That would be a disaster. On so
I
many
feel like just people have not mentioned that. Yeah, Brock Purdy may not play next season. Maybe they think he can be a start, but then it's Sam Darnold. They're not. I know that Kyle Shanahan is the quarterback whisperer, and you make a lot of bad guys look very good. And Trae Lance, by the way, snapped his ankle in half, and he's one of his main benefits is that he's a quarterback that can be mobile. Like, that was part of the appeal of Trey Lance. And he just had a Dak Prescott-esque injury.
That would be catastrophic to the landscape of the NFC for the Eagles.
I had to bring it up because it's like, how has no one talked about this? Because I've had a feeling that he would be like devastating on the 49ers, and I still can't believe that he's just like, I cannot believe the heel turn, and I can't believe the bootlickers that are like talking about Lamar played this so terribly and he should just take. No, why are you pro billionaire? Like, I get it can be frustrating when you look at a guy and the team releases that they offered X contract and it's like 180 guaranteed, and it's hard for you to be like, but he is trying to set a precedent, which I think is a good one, and I think it's absolutely stupid and obscene that the NFL does not have guaranteed contracts. You can have incentives, right, for performance. I think that's fair, but I can't believe the heel turn on Lamar Jackson. One of my favorite players. Love the guy. And I wouldn't love it as much if he was on the 49ers. If he wants to wait a year and maybe come to Miami, then we'll talk. We'll see how Tua's season shakes out. I would love that. But, yeah. Lamar, it just feels like maybe tomorrow we get Lamar Jackson, the 49ers. And we're like, well, there it goes.
The last thing I have on Bijan here is from Ike Reese. He said, I got the opportunity to add potentially a Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, Edgerrin James, Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. I'm adding that caliber of player to my offense, and you think it's a bad idea? What world are we living in? 100%. Like, I get that, you see guys like, our own Isaiah Pacheco, like, going out, being a 7th-round pick, and producing like a 1st-round pick, for the Kansas City Chiefs last year. But when you have that opportunity and that luxury to go and get a Bijan for the next 5 years, and then say, he outperforms, is going to go get paid, you're going to get a compensatory pick for him.
It's hard to let the guys go, though. That's the thing. You maybe should have let Zeke go, but you can't let him walk out the door. It's a tough thing. You're seeing that play out with Saquon too. He's franchise tagged, not showing up to voluntary camps. Player feels scorned. It's tough. It is a tough thing. Bijan on this team would just be. It's like, it's not quite this, but it is like, I think the best way is like Kevin Durant joining the Warriors. It's like, we didn't really need this. We didn't need this, but we got it. We got it. It's unfair that we got it, but yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. But I don't necessarily see it happening.
Who do you think is number 1 pick tomorrow night when the Panthers pick is in?
It sounds like it's going to be Bryce Young.
Not buying into the Reddit Will
I'm
Levis
not buying
hype
into the Will Levis.
from plus 4,000 to plus 400.
Not sure I believe that. Who knows? I think everything that I've read and listened to about this draft, that it feels very unpredictable, which they also say about every draft, but it does feel like these guys, it's a year where guys can slide. As we're getting closer to, you get a little better information. All of a sudden, someone like Paris Johnson, who's not really been like a top 10 mocked guy, is all of a sudden now in the top 5.
Yeah, right now Tankathon has Paris Johnson mocked number 7 to the Raiders.
Right. I was looking at mock drafts that were updated literally yesterday on the 25th, and they had him going like 15th, 16th. And that was before the Kyler Murray drop, and before changes quick. All of a sudden, you get closer, and these things come out. So.
Plus, the Texans are such an unpredictable team that,
well, they got the Lord behind them, and God bless them.
They could do anything. Also, C.J. Stroud said his top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, number 1, Jalen Hurts.
Tell you what, I like C.J. Stroud. I think, again, he might not benefit from the fact that, again, he doesn't have the mobility that especially some of these other quarterbacks in this own draft. But then if you look at kind of what the quarterback position needs to be now in the NFL, but I think whoever gets CJ Stroud at if he drops 6-7, if the Raiders end up with him, not bad.
Yeah, you could see a number of teams in the top 9, I think, take quarterbacks, whether it's obviously the Panthers, the Texans, Colts are obviously going to be taking a quarterback. The Seahawks could, because obviously the Geno contract really breaks down to just being a 1-year deal.
The Seahawks are the big inflection point, and I think I think the Eagles will be watching the Seahawks pick very closely because I think both teams have they're in similar positions that they're both playoff teams, and they have this kind of high pick that is not typical of a team that has the ambition that they do currently, and they kind of have the similar needs. Like they could be someone that gets, say, Will Anderson if he falls to them, or Jalen Carter. Like they can make some interesting moves.
And then you have the Lions at 6, Raiders at 7, Falcons at 8, another like weird wild card type of team. Bears at 9, and then the Eagles at number 10. So.
I've seen Bijan mocked to the Falcons a ton.
Which is really strange because they just drafted
they have Algier. Who was good, but I mean, Bijan is definitely a step above, and we know that the way that Arthur Smith likes to play is with establishing the run in a very serious way, and so that would be interesting.
Which is why I think if the Eagles are viewing Bijan as the pick, you might have to go up to probably number 7 and call the Raiders and see what it's going to take to move up there.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with the draft. Make sure you tune into our NFL draft live stream on YouTube tomorrow night. It's going to be fun. We're going to be taking you through the entire first round. And then, Matt, why don't we head on over to Fiji as we break down Survivor 44, brought to you by our friends over at Wasted Wedge. A new age of golf has arrived, and if you're looking to be the talk and envy of your group and create memories with your friends and family, look no further than the lineup of Wasted Wedge products and merchandise. These Wasted Wedges are a blast to drink shots out of on and off the course. You guys can check them out at wastedwedge.com or find them at Wasted Wedge on Instagram and Facebook. I think this would be a way cooler innovation to a shot in the dark, Wasted Wedge. So go check it out. It is the next big, event talking point, whether it's a bachelor party, weddings, just out on the golf course. It fits right in your side pocket of a golf bag. Go to wastedwedge.com. Check out everything. Make sure you guys follow them as well at Wasted Wedge on Instagram and Facebook. Matt, Survivor 44, the jury is here. Second member of the jury is here. Brandon voted out in last week's episode in kind of a pseudo blindside, I would say. Our guy Danny plays his idol and gets Brandon voted out of the game.
Yeah, he's a big threat, and we talked about Danny and Brandon both maybe getting a little targets on their back for being big threats, and they both making. I think Danny's a little more aggressive publicly, at least from what we've seen, but now he kind of turns the tables there and plays an idol for Franny. Interesting move. I think it's not a bad move because so many people know that you have idols, and it almost makes you even more likely to get votes on you knowing that you have one. Now that you don't, obviously you lose that protection, but I think also maybe takes the heat off a little bit. But it's also a big move to make at this stage of the season. It does feel like Carolyn, Carson, and Jam Jam are, I don't want to say controlling the game, but have like a lot of power, and I think are sort of influencing quite a bit, and that's definitely been reflected in like their confessionals and things like that. I think even like the Danny vote, they were in on a lot. So yeah, I think those three are going to be like central to the rest of the season.
Lauren wins immunity last week. Carson gets an upset stomach from
that
PB&J.
That has got to be the worst. I mean, that is there's got to be just like one of the worst moments of your life.
Also, it really felt like Carolyn was in a horror movie during the challenge, just being wrapped up in that net.
One of the funniest moments of the season because she's screaming, and poor Carson, who just, again, was like throwing up. Like, just think of how bad it is when you're just like in the comfort of your home and you're like, you have like a stomach thing and you're throwing up, and it's like, it sucks. And like, you feel terrible. You can't eat. Now imagine that like after you've already been out there for what, like a week and a half, like, I don't know how many, like 12 or 13 days at this point. And, you're like, you already like don't have food. You don't have access to like, you can't even like really brush your teeth or anything. Like, it's just gotta be but he's so meekly just like, you got this, Carolyn. Did feel bad for Carolyn. I did love too that she like, even knowing that like Carson was gonna be like, frankly, like dead weight and was probably not gonna help you win a challenge, that she was like, yeah, I'll partner up with him. That was nice. That was heartwarming.
We do have tonight's episode name, which is Under the Wing of a Dragon.
Whatever that means.
I mean, again, this season has provided nonstop drama, nonstop just like edge of your seat type of maneuvers and things to really hone in on making what these accelerated seasons, I guess you could call them, with just the 26 days, be that much more intense. The fun part is our guy's still in. Danny's still alive, moving on to at least this week. But the next time on Survivor did not make it sound too promising for Danny. So it seems like he's going to have more work to do.
But given just my experience of watching Survivor, whoever is on the promo and then whoever like in the first like 10 minutes of the episode is like, we got to get him out. He is such a threat.
Yeah.
That person ends up winning immunity, usually. It's like how it goes. So I actually think using some reverse psychology, I think Danny actually might be safe tonight. But he is, again, we talked about like him a few weeks ago. Like, it does feel like people are aware. And when you make a big play like that, people take notice of that. So,
and now he's kind of vulnerable again. No idol, so more than likely an idol gets put back into the game. So could be some idol hunting on this week's episode, but we'll see what all happens as Danny continues to progress further, and we'll see how alliances shake up, how things shake out with this week's episode. But make sure you guys follow at Buffs and Snuffs on Twitter and follow us on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you decide to get your podcast from. We're there. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does go a long way for helping the show continue to grow, helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia and all of our podcasts, whether it's Outside the Box, Top Binge, Streamer Season, F1 Underground, and of course the Get in the Hole podcast as well. Go check them all out wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's where you get full video episodes of every podcast on our network. You get live streams, original content, shorts, clips, all that good stuff is on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. One final thought too, Matt. Overall rating on the Phillies' new service dog, Major.
10 out of 10. Beautiful
Easily.
Stuff.
Great video too to introduce him to Citizens Bank Park.
I also want to sit on the Fanatic's lap and be held and caressed.
Sarah texted me and said, I selfishly hope he fails at being a service dog, so he just continues to be the team dog. So shout out to Philly's new service dog, who's going to be around, I think, for the next 2 years. Major. Be sure to check out our amazing merch partner, PHI Apparel Company, phiapparel.co. Use code Underground for 10% off any and all orders. And, of course, this podcast presented to you by the City of Vineland. And the City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest. The calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a good way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages. Through these tools, you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland for their continued support on this podcast. But this has been episode number 528 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. Till next episode, where we will know who the Eagles have drafted. The Sixers will be getting set for round 2 against an unknown opponent at this juncture. We are signing off. Peace.